Kia ora, James here. Welcome to Wednesday the 29th of June 2022. Morning ramble. This is the part of the year where unfortunately my sleep or lack of quality sleep starts to catch up, so I'll apologise in advance. Things could get a little strange in the next week or so as we get closer to what I refer to as the bad day, or the really bad day. But anyway, that's just a pre-warning for anyone who might be listening to this. Thank you if you are. By all means, feel free to put this on a faster forward setting so you can get through it quicker. Don't want you to waste too much time in your mornings. I wanted to talk a little bit about sizing and capacity planning. I did some math yesterday, and I'm sorry about that. A lot of this will make more sense when I put together a presentation on, a little more formal presentation on design and how we're approaching certain things and mathing it and references and all the rest of it. And this may be a very short one this morning. But as usual, I tend to wake up in the wee hours of the morning thinking about things. And one of the things that have been kind of going through again is capacity and sizing for solar and water and all these other bits and pieces that you need to think about when you're going off grid. Because we don't have access to an unlimited supply or near unlimited supply of H2O or watts and amps and all those other technical terms, we're not going to be grid tied by any means or stretch. We'll have our own composting toilets, so we'll be dealing with that particular part of the business independently. Grey water treatment, again, we've got that in hand, and we'll talk about that in a separate discussion. You know, how to deal with your ones and twos. But in terms of sizing, I just really wanted to talk about not making this process any more difficult than it kind of needs to be. Because one of the common questions with solar and with water is, how much do I need? And obviously that's a really good question when you don't really know how much you're going to have to allow for. But the initial answer is actually surprisingly simple, if you haven't already worked it out. If you already have a homestead or a house, property that you're living in, you will have a water bill. You will have a power bill. And on these handy dandy pieces of paper, electronic or otherwise, they will have a breakdown generally of the last 12 months, but you can also go online and download the information. In terms of consumption by day, month, etc., for however many years your records tend to go back. And this is really useful information to start with, because it gives you an idea of how your household is actually operating, what you're actually using in a, let me say, non-optimal environment. Excuse me, I'm just going to go wander over here. I heard some noises coming from the old boys' own shelter, so I'm just kind of curious to see if there might be something living there. Tangents again. So when we started this whole off-grid project, or had decided we were going to go off-grid, and I looked through all the information that we were going to, and no, doesn't seem to be anything there. So I guess I must be mistaken. Tangent again, these are Shelter Logic shelters. You can put these on top of horse rails. I'm not going to plug Shelter Logic per se. These are relatively inexpensive. I think we picked these up for a couple of $100. I like to get these on special when they're on special. The run-in shelters. And the only negative with them is this tarpaulin, as you can see, gets frayed. And the recommend for that, if I swing back past the other one, you'll see what I mean, is to basically double tap it. I think I mentioned that in the early morning chores video. Anyway, back to the topic. Ramble, remember. and lack of quality of sleep. It does not make a great combo. Sizing. So if you look at the information for what your household is actually outputting, it'll give you, peaks and troughs, highs and lows of what your power consumption is for your house. And from there, you can basically extrapolate the data that you probably roughly need. Oh, that noise actually is someone doing some building in the distance. That's why it sounded weird. All right. So I used that data for our calculations because honestly, I really had no idea of what we were going to use. A lot of the calculations for power give you a big spreadsheet or some other form of calculator where you sit down and you put in all the appliances that you're likely to run and you determine what your draw is and you add it all up. I've got a kettle running and air conditioner and blah, 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 blah. And that determines your per hour watt usage, and then you know what you're doing. And that is a separate calculation that you kind of need to do. But keeping it simple in terms of sizing what your power requirements are throughout a typical day, or more importantly, on your worst days. Winter, for example, a lot more heating if you're using power for heating. Or alternatively, because we had livestock on the homestead, it was interesting because we needed to know how much water we were hauling out for the livestock to use. And I don't know if I kind of touched on it before, but we had a dozen sheep and a couple of pigs, fairly big girls, and we still have lots of ducks and chickens, which also require water, though not as much. So all these things are really useful to know. And all I did was take that and looked at our average consumption. I'm not going to reel the numbers because it's embarrassing, because our family is not particularly efficient when it comes to power use or water use. And said to Dawn, I'm going to start with half. Take the average, which is really the average across the board. I'm not going to really worry about the highs and lows so much, but with our new venture, we're going to be much more efficient. And I'm just going to halve it. And let's see what that number looks like. And that number is probably still too high by a factor of twice as much again. But what it does do is it gives us a target for capacity. And again, at the moment, we're a family of 5, so when Dawn and I get down there, the children are staying here in Ohio. Well, not children, they're young adults now. Are staying in Ohio for a while because they have jobs here. We don't want to just uproot them. And we also have some other business ventures that we're doing that they're going to get involved in. So we'll be taking advantage of the trips back and forth to pick up stock and do other stuff too. But more on that later. Anyway, so capacity is really just a rough size capacity. And so I kind of factored in that realistically, from a solar perspective, I can probably get by with an even smaller system to start with. And when we basically build this out, it's going to be modular. So we can expand, much like I do in my normal day job with computer servers. We can expand vertically, or we can also expand horizontally. So we can scale in 2 different directions. We can add redundancy, we can scale out to accept more power in, we can scale vertically to actually be able to hold more power and use more power. And from a water perspective, we're starting modular as well. We need water catchment, we need to be able to hold that water somewhere, we need to be able to treat that water or process that water through a series of filters to bring it closer to potable for the potable water that we require. We have an RV to start with, so we have a maximum tank capacity for that. All these things kind of factor in. We don't want to waste water, so we want to make sure that we have a mechanism that we can actually tap into later to allow us to hold more water than we probably need. But we're going to have gardens, we're going to have livestock. The livestock will get to roam around the property and they'll take advantage of the streams and things that are there. But during drought, we want to be able to actually make sure that we have all of that capacity laid down. And if we need more, to be able to expand. And this all comes out of your power bills and your water statements to start with, to give you a quote unquote rough guide. So I guess my thought of the day, because I have gone over 10 minutes, if you're looking at something which looks like it could be pretty daunting and challenging at first, maybe involves a lot of math and calculation, because this does actually involve math and calculation a little further down the line for refinement, but don't make the job harder than what it needs to be. Maybe take a step back, think about what you already have, look at the information that you have, and see if you can actually take advantage of that, make some sense of it, and then use that as the basis for some of your decisions moving forwards. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. Kia ora. Hope you all have an amazing day, and we'll chat again tomorrow. Take care.